I
because
like it.
it's like losing weight. It's not fun. But
Right.
when you're with a group of people, and that's really why one of the other reasons why I love the class concept is, if you're struggling with your credit card debt, for instance, when you talk to other people and hear other people having the same struggles, it makes it easier to deal
Yeah.
with. But you got to show up, and that's been a challenge.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals, and amazing people come on to help us. And we have someone today, her nickname is Gucci, which I think is really awesome. And is it Donut?
Yes.
Because
I have a
Gucci
screwed up
Donut would
name.
just be too much.
It's still screwed up.
Not at all. She is a lifelong investor who wants to spread financial literacy and empowerment to as many women as possible, which, is like what I want to do too. So it's perfect that we're here together today.
So
Thank
awesome.
you so much for
Thanks
being
having
here.
me.
So, before we started the recording, we were talking about being a woman in the construction industry. So I guess let's start with like how you got into that, because that's not a trajectory that a lot of women think to take. And then we'll just go from there.
First of all, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. So my background is more kind of male dominated industries, with engineering and finance. And I actually got into the industry through the gentleman that built our house. So I met him in 2007. And we moved, well, actually, no, we met in 2006. And we ended up moving into our house almost 2 years later. And that was April of 2008. So, the world was almost falling apart.
Certainly from the real
And
estate perspective.
yes, yes. And he was really smart. He said, so when we were building our house, he obviously, so there's two processes when you're building. There's the building process where you have to get approvals from the city and, everything has to be up to code and there's standards that you have to abide by. But then there's the like architectural design and also the interior design. And I was just given my background, I was really interested in the architectural piece. And he found it easy to work with me. I was very decisive and he really liked that. And he asked if we could, we had, unlike the rest of the world, we had a little bit of cash and he was really smart. And he said, listen, properties in our neighborhood are selling for, not pennies, but close to pennies on the dollar. And
Yeah.
let's buy some properties and do some work together. And that is how I got into it. Before that, during that period of time, I think, God, the timeline, I have to think about it, but I think I was just finishing up my master's in finance. So I've always taken care of our personal finances, but I did not have a business at the time. So I was available, basically. I was available to devote some time to it. And that's kind of how it all took off. And we are still best friends. But a few years into the process, I decided to get my building license and start my own company just so my name could be on the finished product. And yeah, and so we were building single family homes. We were not doing commercial construction. Although I think commercial constructions, no offense to anyone, is a bit easier. There are just a lot of details when you're
Oh, yeah.
building, a large single family home.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I got into it. I kind of fell into it.
But that's fun. And it's for sure that's the more romantic and beautiful and fun side of the like getting the I have friends, that's their job, is they basically get your permits for you. And I thought, oh, I would slit my wrists, like what a horrible, what's the
Actually, I mean,
worst?
it depends on the municipality,
It
but
does. You're
I
right.
mean, generally speaking, so where I was building, the city is very business savvy.
Hmm.
They know what it takes to run a city and that they need revenue. So they were very
Yeah.
business savvy. And yes, it definitely depends on the city. But generally speaking, if you are trustworthy and you have a good track record, I think
Yeah.
even in cities that aren't that way, they're more prone to help you along the way. So it's not as
Yeah.
bad as you think.
Well, and it's new construction, right? I never do new construction. I'm always fixing something and trying to
Yes,
make it
yes.
bigger and better than it probably should be on that lot or whatever. So that's where
Yeah.
I run into
So
trouble with,
the neighborhood that I primarily build in, there are very old homes, but it's a highly desired neighborhood. So you have to do a full excavation, and it's, in my opinion, it's easier to start from zero.
oh yeah,
Remodels
absolutely.
can be challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always going for special permits and all that kind of stuff. So that's where you get the neighbors involved and everybody wants to, talk and put their 2 cents in and whatever. But
It's still a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun.
awesome. So now are you still doing primarily single family homes? What's your focus today?
So my focus today, a lot of my real estate today is more passive commercial stuff.
Hmm.
So after COVID, we were very busy during COVID. But a few years after COVID, I built and sold my last property just because the numbers did not make sense anymore.
Yeah,
As you can imagine, 2009, 2010, 2011 versus today, the profit margin is
tiny.
significantly different. And,
Yeah,
suppliers and laborers really had the advantage. And I just didn't have to take the risk. So
yeah.
decided not to. But yeah, the only construction is passive commercial stuff that went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, having to be creative and make something work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt like the end of COVID was a good time to pivot into commercial because properties were same thing. They're selling for much less than they really were worth. And if you were a little bit creative and you didn't, weren't trying to just put another 300 person company in there or whatever, then there were opportunities definitely to make
Yeah, I
some
mean,
good
it
decisions. Yeah.
was a small window. I mean, it was definitely a small window after COVID, and I think today too, part of the problem is there's just way too many people that have, access to capital. Like we're all chasing after the same thing, and it's a really challenging time, if you're an investor in any asset class, really.
Yeah, I agree. But there's always an opportunity to be made.
Yes, I agree. There is. Got to
Well,
work
especially when
hard.
people are just getting started, right? When they're still a little bit hungry and they still are willing to do some of the things that, maybe you're less willing to do after you've been doing it for a while and don't necessarily need the money. And maybe not that your enthusiasm is different, but you know much more clearly what things you enjoy doing and what things you don't.
Well, and I think after a certain point too, you're hopefully, at my age, at a point in your life where the risk reward is that much more pronounced.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I stepped back. At any point in time, I had millions of dollars tied up in one property, and I'm like, I don't have to do that,
Yeah.
if there's a better way to make a higher return. So, but when you're younger, obviously unless you have a trust fund, the risks that you're taking are not as significant,
Right.
and you have some room to make mistakes, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So let's kind of segue over to how you're helping women today to either follow in your footsteps or at least to do something in the real estate sphere so that they can start to get some passive income and get some income and
Yes, yes. So I started a company called Millionelle. It was initially called Raising Rockefeller. But then I got a phone call from this big law firm in New York who was not happy with that. I guess they had bought the rights to the Rockefeller name, which I could have easily gone to court. Okay. I mean, you cannot own a name.
Exactly.
But I thought, okay, this is so not worth it. So I changed it to Millionelle. So that's the word million and then ELLE.
French for
Um,
woman.
yes.
For folks who don't understand the significance.
Yes, thank you. Um, and my passion at this point in my life, I'm lucky enough that I can give back, and I really want to teach women what I wasn't taught. Even though I had two highly college educated parents, my dad was an accountant, and there are things he didn't teach me. Like the one thing that stands out in my mind is how your expenses, it doesn't matter how much money you make, right? You have to have a
For
handle on
sure.
your expenses.
Yeah.
And as simple as that sounds, nobody ever taught me that. So, um, aside from those basic principles, I also want to teach women how investing really is not nearly as difficult as you think it is, especially in 2025.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different time. There's just so much information.
Absolutely. And I would go back to what you said about expenses because especially when you're just starting and you're doing something to a property, it's very easy to forget to include a lot of those expenses, right? You're not, well, I had to form an LLC, but that's not right. That's not the cost. They think the cost of the house, but there's the holding costs, and there's, like I said, all the administrative expenses and all these other things. And if you're not keeping track, and by the way, if you're doing a flip, right, don't forget about taxes, which so many
Huge.
people do. I made 30 grand on that. Okay, great. What about your taxes, right? It's not
Right.
really. And then when you start to do the math, you're like, wow, I was working for like $3 an hour. What was I thinking?
Yeah. No, no. I mean, that is such a valid point. So the gentleman that I got into business with, my partner, um, so 2008, 2009, a lot of businesses went under, right?
Yeah,
Including construction. And I
yeah,
remember there was a local guy that he met up with that said, Dave, his name's Dave. How did you do it? How did you stay in business? And he said, well, I don't have a huge staff. I keep an eye on all of my numbers, and it's a tight operation. And you're right. People don't I love YouTube and podcasts for the information that they put out there, but yeah, the expenses, the carrying costs are significant.
well, and also the thing about a lot of the podcasters and I mean, frankly, we've had a very long uphill trajectory for real estate. So there are people who've been in doing real estate for 15 years and they've never seen a down market and they have no idea what's ahead and what to do about that. I
Yeah,
remember
it's
being on
scary.
a panel one time and these guys were talking about their plan and I thought that works great as long as real estate's going up. And one of them
Right.
actually said, real estate always goes up. Like, yeah, but sometimes it eventually always goes up. But sometimes there's like a, 15-year dip in between where it goes down. And I don't know that
Right.
your particular, this particular person's model would have withstood that sort of a depression in the market. And
Right. And I mean exactly, that's something else that I think the average person doesn't understand is we will have some sort of correction where, your renter isn't able to pay his or her rent, and you have to make sure you have cash flow, right?
yeah,
You have to account. And I'm very I'm an optimistic person, but when I'm doing my accounting, I'm worst case scenario always.
yeah.
And yeah, that's why I mean most businesses don't succeed, right? I mean, it's cash flow.
Right. And it's a fine line, right? Because if you weren't somewhat optimistic, no one would ever go in business, right? Because if you just
Ever,
that's analysis
ever.
paralysis, right? You're just going to sit there
Yeah.
and run the numbers like, oh my God, it's never going to work. So you've got to have
Well,
some, you know, glorious optimism, but then there also has to be that reality in there somewhere. So it's quite a balancing act.
well, and I think that the more educated you are and the more you know, you're at a disadvantage because you kind of, I mean, I've with myself, like I've talked myself out of so many things.
Yeah,
It's almost better to be like 23 and clueless. No offense to the 23-year
exactly.
olds that are listening, but you really have a lot to learn. Trust me, trust us. But that is, I don't know, like it's a good situation to be in
Right. As you say, there's less to
from a
lose.
certain, perspective.
Yeah.
You don't talk yourself out of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's more optimism and less logic, which is good for you already
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
have that in
you're
the
you
beginning.
take you can take more of a risk, and
Yeah.
you do
Yeah.
probably. I don't know, but
Yeah. Well, and as you said, it's easier to take more of a risk because you have less to lose.
you
At
have a
that
lot
point,
less to lose.
normally you
Yeah.
have less assets. You might not have any. You might just have student loan debt, right? And you're like, well, what are they going to take, right? Let's
Yeah,
just
I
try
mean,
it. What's the worst that could happen, right?
especially if you don't have a family,
Right.
that's the time you do it.
Exactly right. So what today brings you the most joy? Like what's a great day for you?
That's such a great question. I love to read. So I mean, I have daily bouts of joy. I wake up very early. I have my triple shot of espresso and I read. I love reading. So that really brings me, that's a little bit of joy every day. I love to be outside. And I don't know, big picture, I just hope to I think it's human nature to like to help other people. Um, that always brings me joy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that a good answer?
It's a great answer. Absolutely. Absolutely. So how does it work when you first start working with a new person? Do you work like one-on-one or with groups or how does that work?
So it's interesting that you're asking that question. We're tweaking our process right now. You have access, so you get a welcome email, and you get access to the app. In order to get access to the app, there's a little bit of an onboarding process.
Hmm.
I mean, it takes 5 to 10 minutes. And in that process, as long as you have your login credentials, you're able to, whether it's your bank accounts or your student loans or your Fidelity brokerage account, everything just kind of gets plopped into your bottom line and you have to go through and categorize them. And then at that point, you're ready to set up a budget. So along with that, we have monthly classes um, to make sure that you set it up properly. And the software is something that we've licensed, but we're working on our own app right now,
Hmm.
just because it's just we found convoluted and people don't show up to classes.
Yeah.
Um, and I want it to be a little simpler.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. So that's
Yeah.
been fun, right?
Yeah, the
Developing that whole
software is great.
process.
The software is wonderful, but I want to make it a little more user friendly.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because we both know that when it comes to a budget or it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Nobody, well, maybe people our age have Excel spreadsheets still, but 2025, nobody, especially younger people, my target demographic, they're not doing that. And I don't blame
Right.
them.
Yeah.
There's better options.
And budgeting is not, I mean, it's the B word. People are not excited about it and they think right away it sounds like, handcuffs, right? Well, once I find out how much I'm spending on good stuff, I'm not going to be able to buy any more good stuff. So I definitely don't want to do a budget.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think what's happening today is people get used to the good stuff and then
Yeah.
they get into debt over the good stuff.
Yeah.
The thought process has changed a little bit. But yeah, in one of my ads on Instagram, I say we're like Weight Watchers for money,
I
because
like it.
it's like losing weight. It's not fun. But
Right.
when you're with a group of people, and that's really why one of the other reasons why I love the class concept is, if you're struggling with your credit card debt, for instance, when you talk to other people and hear other people having the same struggles, it makes it easier to deal
Yeah.
with. But you got to show up, and that's been a challenge.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And that, especially when you're younger, the retirement and all that stuff just seems miles away.
Right.
And equally, the idea of financial independence when you're struggling to pay your student loan debt probably also feels like an impossibility. So allowing people to maybe see some role models and see some success stories where like, oh, that person was like me and they had these things, it can help.
It
Um,
does. It really does.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very gives you some optimism.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, I mean, what do you feel like is next? Do you have, it seems like that whole class piece is more or less, I mean, you're developing some software, but it's more or less de defined, and your own sort of real estate journey is more or less defined. So do you have something that you're sort of blue skying, something that you're imagining and thinking about for the future?
Um, Relative to business or just life in general?
Well, yeah, what do you want your life? This is like a, your goals 101 spreadsheet question. Like what would you like your life to look like in 5 years if it was just the perfect
Oh my God.
scenario?
I've thought about that so many times, and it's a very difficult question. But one thing that I always struggle with is keeping life interesting. And that's one of the reasons why I do podcasts. I love the all of the wonderful people that I met.
Yeah.
Um, eh, at this point in my life, I've been blessed to do mostly everything I wanted to do. I love to travel. My parents love to travel. We drove, unless we were flying over the Atlantic, we drove to a lot of places. I
Yeah, we
mean,
do too.
right? I mean, east of the Mississippi, I saw it in the back of my dad's Grand Marquis. Um, but I would just like to keep life interesting for myself.
Yeah.
And I think, so I'm 50, and my kids are grown. It it is really a huge transition. And I'm ready to, I don't want to say make new friends. I love my friends. I'm really blessed to have great friends, but I'm ready for that next
Expansion.
expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Excellent.
don't know what it is though. When you say where do I want to be in 5 years? I don't know. It's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, it can be for sure. If you're not,
I just want to keep going. I
yeah,
just want to keep evolving.
evolving, exactly. You don't want to keep doing what you're doing. I mean, maybe that could be a component of it, but you want to evolve and find something else new and exciting that's going to really bring, because it's exciting, right? I just started like a year ago. I started working on saving this beautiful big building in the next town over, and that
Oh,
has
that
been
is
just,
so cool.
it's been so much fun. I
How
have to tell you,
fun.
it has been so much fun, so much learning, and the
I'm
group.
sure it's loaded with asbestos.
Yeah, it's not so, the asbestos less so than the mold because it's been abandoned for like 23 years and there's
Oh,
some
how
water
fun.
infiltration from the ceiling, from the roofs and stuff. And,
Okay.
but it's just the people who have been attracted to the project. So now I have this team that is just unbelievably smart and talented. And we're actually having our first fundraiser tomorrow for the building.
Nice.
We're applying for grants. We're just doing all this stuff and trying to, we actually haven't signed the paper yet to buy it from the city, but that's certainly on board. And so that's all been like under a nonprofit thing.
Okay.
But now I'm like, there's another building in the city. It's an old courthouse, and it's got, like the stained glass window in the ceiling, and like just all this beautiful architecture. And the same thing, the city doesn't have the money to maintain it. It's going to hell in a handbasket. And I'm like, well, that could be a fun personal commercial project. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've seen buildings that have been converted
oh
from
yeah,
churches or school. And,
absolutely.
I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't seen many that I like.
The
But
conversions, you mean?
conversions,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to really find the right architect and have a solid vision. There's a
Yeah.
property that's actually very close to me that used to be a school. It's on a main road and it's now like senior living. Um, and if they just added shutters
Yeah.
and I realize it's an added expense. I get it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I kind of wish the city would have pressed them a little bit to make it still looks like a school,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Whether it's with the landscaping or, you can get creative. It doesn't have to be super expensive, but we actually recently, trying to remember where it was. It was either in Belgium or the Netherlands. We stayed at a converted church.
Cool.
It was so cool and it was so well done.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, it was beautiful, but that's a lot of fun. I'm
Yeah.
excited for you.
Yeah, it's great. It's really fired me up. It's a lot of fun.
So, do you have any idea what you're going to do with the properties?
Yeah, it's going to become an art center. So
So both
this
of
one will become an art center. The
the
other one that I would
building.
buy personally would be just a commercial space where people can work in a really cool atmosphere.
That's a great idea, like a meet, like basically like a Starbucks in a church kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's
That is a great idea.
yeah, it's going to
I
be
love it.
amazing. It's going to be really amazing.
Wow. Good for you. Well,
Thanks.
we have properties like that. So I'm in Michigan. I'm in the Detroit metro area. We're like 25 minutes away from Detroit proper, which
Hmm.
is actually a pretty big city,
Yeah,
square mile wise.
yeah,
And there are, I just last week, there was this church, but the problem is it's surrounded by nothing. So if it's in a highly populated area, it's
right.
great. But, all of those, we've been rebuilding here for the last decade. So the churches that are within walking distance of the new apartments are all gone.
Yeah,
Um, but it just, it didn't make sense because nobody's coming there.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. But that's wonderful. Good luck. That's exciting.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, maybe something. I'm assuming that whatever your next chapter is, it'll have something to do with real estate, perhaps.
Um,
Do you feel like real estate is your passion or just something that
You
works
know,
well for your
I
skill
would
set?
say investing is my passion.
Okay.
Investing is definitely my passion, just because I'm very familiar with it from a very early age.
Yeah.
But yeah, my next chapter, I'm in my next chapter.
Right? Yeah.
And I don't have a 5-year plan. Maybe I should work on that. I'm going to put that on my to-do list.
So, what would you say to people who are, not young, not in their 20s, but they really feel like this is something they'd like to get involved in, that they've maybe saved some money with their 9 to 5, and now they're like, well, look it, I do have this passion. I'm going to these open houses. I'm always on, Zillow looking at properties. I want to be involved in some aspect of real estate, but I feel like I'm old and I don't know what I'm doing. So, I mean, do you have any sort of words of wisdom for them or any thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously it does depend how old you are and how long your timeline is and what your cash flow is like and what your because real estate's not liquid, right? I mean, if
Right.
you invest X amount, it's gone for a while unless you're going to sell it at a discount, right?
Yeah.
So, there are so many ways to invest in real estate. You can, it just kind of depends on how involved you want to be and what your objectives are. If you want to make, if you're looking for a dividend income, you can buy a REIT through your
Hmm.
brokerage. But if you have a passion for it, you can get involved. And there's indirect ways to get involved in these construction projects as well. I would never personally invest in them. But you basically own slices of development companies.
Yeah.
I just think, they're not transparent enough for me to ever invest in anything like that.
Yeah.
But it kind of depends what your objective is, um, and what your
Yeah.
cash flow is like. If you do want to buy a church, and it depends. There's many ways to do it.
Yeah. Well, that idea, getting involved with developer, there are smaller developers where you can be more of a partner, and that can be a way to learn some things about the process if you know and trust the person, if you're familiar with their work or whatever.
Yeah. You know, I've I could have raised capital easily, because people that know me trust me.
Yep.
Um, and I was lucky enough to partner with someone who was very trustworthy. I mean, we did not have a single contract. I mean, it was a handshake, and
Yeah.
that's really what it boils down to, right? I mean, a contract you still have to enforce in
Yeah.
court. Um, but I would say baby steps. There's
Yeah.
a lot of information online, so I would start with YouTube or, um, actually, maybe even a better resource is if you do have a brokerage account, there's unlimited resources on like the Fidelity and the Schwabs of the world. I know that Robinhood is big with our younger population. I'm not sure what their resources are like, but I would start there and give yourself a foundation um, when it comes to, you know, the now you need to be a little knowledgeable. And then again, it depends what your objective is and what you're comfortable with, because liquidity risk is a thing, or illiquid,
Yeah.
real estate's illiquid. So
Yeah,
relatively
absolutely.
speaking,
Yeah, definitely goals. Definitely start with your goals.
yeah, start with learning
Yeah,
and then your goals, and yeah, take it from there.
excellent.
And it's not as easy as people make it sound.
I know, exactly. If someone says, "Oh, there's no way you can lose money," then run away, run in the
Yeah.
other direction because there's always a way to lose money, no matter what you get involved in, right? It's always possible to lose money.
Well, I would say it's more likely that you are going to lose money
Yeah, yeah,
because
especially if you're
most people
listening to someone
don't
who
know what
says,
they're doing. They just don't know what they're doing.
"Yeah, right, exactly." They haven't made the 400 mistakes that a more seasoned person has made.
Right, right. I mean, look at, I always think about Bernie Madoff, and, that wasn't real estate, but all of the intelligent, like people that we assumed were
Yeah,
intelligent, right?
yep,
That just wrote the guy their life savings.
yep.
So, yeah, do your due diligence, trust yourself, and
And
yeah.
remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
It is. It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is.
So it's been great getting to know you and talking to you, spending this time with you. What do you wish I would have asked you, or what do you want people to go away from this episode remembering? And
Um, I would want your listeners to remember that whatever it is you want to do, it is possible. You just have to have the right attitude and hopefully the support system, and when I was talking about my daily joy, try to give yourself that daily joy. Get outside,
yeah,
do whatever it is. Hopefully it's not, shots of tequila, but you know, whatever it is, just stay focused, and you'll get there. Like keep moving forward and you'll
yeah,
get there.
excellent advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. So nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you too. And if people are interested in your course and stuff, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So if you just go to millionelle.com, so that's the word million and then ELLE.com. And I also have a podcast that's the same name, wherever you listen to podcasts. And those are just kind of bite size. I do have interviews on there, but it's mostly like 5 to 6 minute episodes on financial education, essentially. But
Excellent.
that's where you can find us, Millionelle.
Excellent. Millionelle. And that link will also be in the show notes. So
Thank you.
be sure you check it out and stop right now and think about, I don't know, maybe 5 people who you know who are younger, maybe, and who are interested in real estate, or at least interested in not owing their life away for the rest of their life, that they're interested in financial independence and financial freedom, and shoot them this episode because we'll be excited and they'll be excited. You'll be the hero of the day. And be sure to be with us next week. Thank you.